a very large group of single men aged between 18 and 40. We're all aware of serious crimes that have occurred in other areas, particularly involving women. Crowborough is a low-crime town. You haven't answered what specific measures are you going to put in place to ensure that our crime levels do not rise and that residents, especially women and children, are protected.
Well, look, we are working closely with the police. We're working closely with the local authority.
So there are no additional safety measures?
Well, I won't go into operation.
Well, there you go. This is GB News Originals. I'm Emily Carver. Please do give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And do leave a comment. Let me know what you think.
Additional details around the policing of the site. I have made sure that we are very alive as the Home Office and also working with local partners about all of the potential ramifications for people and that those measures are in place. So what I can reassure you is that we are working closely with everybody in the local area to make sure that those concerns are dealt with. And of course, I would expect the police and everybody else to be, policing this in the usual way.
Or have you instructed? I appreciate you're not going to tell me exactly what the patrols might be.
No, I can't. Well, I can't go into that level of operational detail. But what I can tell you is I absolutely hear those concerns, and in our planning, we are dealing with those concerns.
And you've had a conversation with the Chief Constable. You expect increased policing of some form in Crowborough?
I would expect them to. Yes, so I would.
So
I would expect. No, I haven't spoken to the Chief Constable directly myself.
Why not, Home Secretary?
I will do. The Policing Minister and the Immigration Minister are all talking to the local authorities. That is important. We are moving slowly, so it's only a very small number of people that have been moved first, and that is normal because it gives us a chance to see how those local arrangements are working before we put more people onto the site. Right. If we had problems, we would obviously go slower.
The real cost of Westminster's quiet agenda. Welcome back to Britain Underneath, where we peel back the polished veneer of Westminster to examine the decisions changing the course of this country, while everyone else is looking the other way. Before we dive into today's standard breakdown, if you value independent, sharp, and grounded analysis on British politics, please do take a moment to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and leave a thumbs up. It takes just a second, but it genuinely helps this channel grow and ensures we can keep bringing you these deep investigations.
Is because they can see that this is a broken system, it is dividing people across our country, and because they know how vital it is that we make these changes so that we can retain public support for having an asylum system at all. I know the British people are generous, open and tolerant. I want to make sure that we unlock the full extent of that openness and tolerance and generosity, and we will do that by having a system that has order and control at its heart, and that then enables us to grow and bring more people in through safe and legal routes into this country.
Home Secretary, your MPs are really angry. Nadia Whittome says the government's pursuing the policy of the far right. Simon Offer says we should push back on the racist agenda of reform. Why are they wrong and why are you right?
Well, look, what I would say to my colleagues is, firstly, I accept that not everybody will agree with these proposals, but I have not thought for a minute about what any other political party is doing or what any other politician has to say about any of these matters. I'm the Home Secretary of this country. I can see a broken system. When people complain to me about the asylum system, they're not indulging in fake news. They haven't read some misinformation on social media that's got in their head and now they're spouting some nonsense. What they're complaining about is a very real thing. It is a broken system. I've seen it myself. My constituents have been telling me about it for years. I can see the system is dividing people in our country. So it's my job as a Home Secretary to come up with solutions that will fix this broken system, retain order and control, and then also build support for the true compassion of the British people to be unleashed by opening up new safe and legal routes. So what I'd say to my colleagues is, look at the totality of the reforms. These are reforms that are underpinned by Labour values of fairness and contribution. They're British values as well. That's why I believe the country can get behind these reforms. But they also have compassion at the heart, because we want to disincentivise people getting on a boat in the north of France, and we want to incentivise people coming through new safe and legal routes instead.
Earlier you were talking about taking the jewellery away from asylum seekers. It seems like you've slightly rowed back on that one today. Is that cruel? Is that a step too far, taking away people's jewellery?
No, we were never going to take jewellery away from people at the border or seize assets at the border. That is not the policy position of myself or the party. What we have said is where people have assets and high value assets and can make a contribution to the asylum accommodation that they are receiving, they should do so. And the example I used in my speech in the House today is the case that I have in mind in making these changes. We had a case where a man was receiving £800 a month in income from his family. He also had enough money to acquire an Audi, and yet he was receiving free asylum accommodation whilst his claim was waiting to be heard. It cannot be right that people who are able to contribute to the cost of their asylum accommodation do not do so, right? So I think it is absolutely fair and proper. British citizens, by the way, when they have assets, can't unlock benefits and access to the benefit system in this country. So I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that people who do have high value assets make that contribution, but this has never been about seizing jewellery or indeed anything else at the border. This is about taking an assessment of assets later down the track so that if people are receiving free accommodation, they are able to contribute to it.
We know that Labour MPs have had the potential to force the government into U-turns. We saw it with welfare, we saw it with Interfuel. What do you think the potential impact could be if you were forced to back down on some of these measures which you've announced today?
Well, I don't believe that will be the case, because I think what we saw in the House today was broad support from my colleagues across the Parliamentary Labour Party for these reforms, for the necessity of these reforms, for the substance of these reforms, and for the absolute critical need to deliver for the British people. That is what my colleagues, the vast majority of my colleagues, were talking about today. As I said, not everybody will always agree, but there is broad support for these reforms in the Labour Party, and that is why I believe that they will be realised.
There is a quiet transformation happening across the United Kingdom, one that rarely makes the primary headlines on the evening bulletin, yet touches almost every facet of daily life. While public attention is deliberately directed toward high-stakes international summits and the grand gestures of foreign policy, domestic priorities are undergoing a subtle shift. From energy bill adjustments to structural governance, the decisions being made behind closed doors today will define the economic reality of British households for years to come.
36,000 people have crossed the Channel so far this year. What does success for this policy look like? Down to 0, down to 10,000?
Well, look, I want to reduce those numbers as quickly as possible. I haven't given targets because I know that a lot of people will feel very cynical about the asylum system because they will think we've heard all of this before. And I want to just prove that we can do this. And I would ask people to just judge us on our record, give us a chance to get these reforms through and implemented and ultimately taking effect across the country.
So no timetable on if that will ever come down to 0?
Look, we've said, for example, that we're going to get out of asylum hotels by the end of the Parliament. I want to bring that forward. I obviously want to decrease the number of people getting into boats in the Channel and coming to the country this way. The reforms will take some time because they need to go through primary legislation. We will need to pass laws in order to get them done, and then they will need to be implemented. All I say to people is give us a chance to turn this around and to fix this system, and then ultimately judge us on our record.
You want to restart returns to Syria. The Foreign Office says that's still an unsafe country. How can you justify sending people back there?
Well, look, I think the situation in Syria has changed, so we're just recognising that the conflict there has come to an end. Well, some voluntary returns have already taken place to Syria, and other countries are starting to consider enforced removal, and we have said that we will do so as well. We will obviously respond to the situation on the ground, but it is right that when a situation changes in a country that we also are able to start returning people to it.
You spoke earlier in the Commons about racism. You spoke about being called yourself an effing P-word and told to go home. Can I ask you how that made you feel?
Well, it's horrible to be subject.
Let us look closely at what is unfolding right now. Westminster loves a grand narrative. It offers a convenient stage, allowing politicians to project authority on a global scale, while quietly managing crises closer to home. But when you step back and examine the domestic policy pipeline, a very different picture emerges. Public services remain under immense pressure. Infrastructure projects face growing friction across the regions, and local authorities are quietly struggling to balance their books. Take, for instance, the continuous debate over public spending and taxation. We are repeatedly told that tough choices are necessary, that fiscal prudence must take priority, and that sacrifices are required to secure long-term stability. Yet, when you analyse where capital is being directed, the priorities appear increasingly misplaced. Small-scale policy tweaks, such as temporary VAT reductions or piecemeal household discounts, are often presented as grand solutions to a cost of living crisis that requires far deeper structural reform. These measures provide short-term relief, certainly, but they do little to address the systemic pressures facing the average worker, renter, or homeowner. If you are enjoying this breakdown and want to stay ahead of the narrative, please do pause for a second, take a breath, and hit that subscribe button.
Jump out and wade back to the shoreline as those left on board resume their journey. The 4 who leapt off are met by the French police, but they're barely questioned, let alone arrested, and within a minute they've walked off towards the dunes. Behind them, the frail, packed, slow-moving boat is on its way to Britain.
The French authorities are well aware of the progress of this boat. We've seen the police watch it leave the beach. There was a helicopter above, and that search and rescue vessel is monitoring its progress. But they won't intercept it because they're too worried about all of those migrants falling into the water. So unless the boat itself fails, all of those people will be landing in Britain.
We have seen how the smugglers who operate along this coastline are well organised and act fast. French police rarely enter the water, and the smugglers exploit that fact. British politicians have demanded tougher action from France. The French say the UK needs to address the pull factors that attract migrants. So what is it that draws so many people from around the world to make this journey?
Staying informed in today's rapid news cycle requires looking beyond the surface, and your subscription ensures this channel can continue providing clear, unbiased insights. What makes the current political landscape so intriguing is the growing disconnect between the rhetoric in Parliament and the daily experience on the street. Whether it is the ongoing strain on the National Health Service, the management of border security, or the allocation of regional funding, there is a distinct pattern of reactive governance, rather than long-term strategy. Policies are crafted to manage the news cycle, rather than solve foundational problems. When public concern reaches a peak on any given issue, the standard response is often a carefully managed statement, a commitment to work closely with local partners, and very little in the way of concrete, transparent measures. This approach creates a culture of uncertainty. Local councils are left to manage the social and financial ramifications of central decisions without the necessary resources. Communities are expected to adapt to rapid changes in their local areas while receiving minimal clear communication from central government. It is a familiar routine, and one that is becoming increasingly difficult to defend. As we navigate through these turbulent political times, it is essential to look beneath the surface.